In a previous video, I talked about Elon Musk and his pronouncement about empathy. He had said that empathy is, I quote, a fundamental weakness in human civilization, the empathy exploit. He believes it's a flaw in our programming. And I spoke about that, how completely wrong that is, and how damaging such notions are to our entire species, and how that also explains a lot of his behavior and the behavior of people around him. What I didn't know enough about at the time was the fact that that is actually just the tip of the iceberg. It's not just Musk who thinks this way, it's a whole swathe of people on the right, including the Christian right, many of whom have embraced this notion that empathy is bad, empathy is toxic, there's something wrong with you if you're being empathic.
And don't worry, because the right-wing evangelicals are talking about this one too. And there are some right-wing theologians who are legit arguing that empathy is actually tricking poor little Christians. I mean, seriously, can you imagine being like, oh, it's unchristian to have empathy? That's what they're saying. They're saying that it's unchristian to have empathy, to be empathetic. They're saying that to be empathetic is unchristian. And there's another recent book written by another right-wing Christian that's called Toxic Empathy. And it's another book about how leftists and progressives supposedly exploit Christian empathy. It argues cool things like that empathy for migrants is actually unchristian.
Now, firstly, even on their own terms, that is completely wrong. The teachings of Jesus Christ are all about empathy. It's fundamental to the teachings of Christ. So if you remember the parable of the Good Samaritan, all about helping somebody who's less fortunate than you, really being at somebody's aid when they're down. And I've got some quotes here from the Bible that are really explicit about that. In Hebrew 4:15, when Jesus emphasizes the importance of his coming down in human form in order to empathize with the human condition, in order to empathize with the human experience. It was all about his developing empathy for others. And then he says in Luke 6:36, you must be compassionate just as your Father is compassionate to you. And then again in Romans 12:15, rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. And that's what empathy and compassion is really about, being alongside someone. Compassion means with pain, comes from the Latin, with pain. That means being alongside another person in their pain. Just as it says in the Bible, weep with those who weep. I teach this for a living, that's my day job. I teach empathy and compassion to other doctors and nurses and clinicians as a big part of my academic and teaching life, which is based here in the UK. And that empathy, that compassion is a fundamental human quality, not only for healthcare professionals, but for others. And people can sometimes approach it from a spiritual perspective. And again here we see in the Bible, John 13:34, love one another as I have loved you. And of course, laced throughout the Bible, and actually throughout every religious text, is something that we refer to as the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have they do to you. So treat other people as you want to be treated yourself. That's a fundamental tenet of all religious and spiritual teachings, whether it's Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and Buddhism. It's all about actually treating others as you would wish they would treat you. So if you were downtrodden, if you were homeless, if you were somebody who was on the street, if you were someone who was facing misfortune, you would hope that other people would be there for you. And in the same way that you hope that from other people, you should behave that way towards other people too. It's called the golden rule for a reason. And every religion has empathy and compassion at its heart. Right now, as I record this, this is the month of Ramadan, in which Muslims all around the world, billions of Muslims, are fasting. They are not eating from dawn till dusk the whole day. Why? In order to empathize with people less fortunate than them. They starve themselves on purpose to know what it must be like to be starving, and a key part of that month of Ramadan is also giving charitably to people less fortunate than you. And of course, Buddhism is also very well known for its adherence to kindness and empathy. As the Dalai Lama puts it, my religion, simply put, is kindness. The fundamental philosophy underneath Buddhism is the notion that we are all essentially interconnected, that every part of life, every part of the universe is fundamentally interconnected at a deep level, even beyond time and space. There's a fundamental connection that exists within us all. And therefore, being kind to others is essentially being kind to yourself. By being kind to others, you are also being kind to that part of yourself which is all that is. So this notion runs consistently throughout all forms of spirituality. and it is also, as I have just read, in the teachings of Jesus. So it seems that what these Republicans and these right-wing Christians are actually preaching is not the word of Jesus or any prophet or any spiritual leader. It is a caricature. And this caricature was beautifully depicted in perhaps my favorite video on YouTube, a video called GOP Jesus. Please look it up, GOP Jesus. And this is really who they think Jesus was.
Truly I say unto you, whoever welcomes one of these little ones in my name might be letting in a murderer or a drug. Let's get her to a detention center, till we can figure out what's going on. I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. And behold, now I'm all lazy and entitled. You shouldn't have done that. Do unto others as you suspect they might want to do unto you. What is a man profited if he gain the whole world but lose his soul? A lot. He has profited a lot. One soul for the whole world, that is an amazing deal. If a man strikes you on the right cheek, turn to him and shoot him. That is the law.
Now, empathy, of course, as I mentioned in a previous video, is not just a good thing to do, it's not just a moral thing to do, it's not just a spiritual thing to do, it's actually something that benefits us as a species. It's the right thing to do for evolution, because this is also what Darwin talked about, that species that are able to display empathy for each other, that are able to collaborate, that are able to organize together for the benefit of the whole species and all of life, actually have an advantage in their ability to outlive other species that are busy killing each other and ripping each other apart. It's really not rocket science, but it is something that Darwin described originally and has been consistently available in evolutionary theory from its very inception. Now, in a future video, I will address the reason why so many Christians end up becoming right-wing and end up following someone like Trump, even though his message, his behavior, his philosophy, and the philosophy of all far-right people is so fundamentally, diametrically opposed to the teachings of Christ. There is a psychological reason for that, and I'll be addressing that in a future video. Thank you for watching my video. I'm a psychiatrist. I'm also interested in philosophy and public policy and politics. I aim to make a number of videos about these subjects, and particularly the intersection between them. If you're able to like and subscribe to this channel, then it'll really help, and also put in some comments whenever you can. That'll really help the algorithm. It'll really help promote this channel to other people. Now, beyond that, we are all, unfortunately, at the behest of a very small number of people who seem to run everything these days. And we are all at the whim of a tech oligarch who could decide tomorrow to end a channel like this because it's not in their favor. And because of that, I've set up a kind of email newsletter, which you can subscribe to. At the top of the channel, you'll see a web address. Please go there and subscribe to my newsletter. That way you can stay in touch with the videos I'm making. At least we can keep the content flowing. So I hope you can do that. And I hope we can keep talking and also gain clarity, not just about what's happening right now, but how we can get through this, how we can improve things to make a better tomorrow together. Thank you.